Episode 8. Ernest Sanchez, everybody.
That's me.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
This is the Thanksgiving special. In the lineup that I have in upcoming months, I thought of Ernest for this special because he's a good dude. We have a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
A lot of stories, a lot of good times. We're gonna have fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Before we start, though, what do you say?
Let's do it.
All right. So, we'll start at the beginning of us.
Of us.
Okay?
Okay.
Probably the rescue mission. Maybe before. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe before, because I had known your family for some years before.
Yeah.
So we probably had met.
Yeah,
somewhere
for sure.
along the way. But we never hung out, never really talked. Until the rescue mission.
Rescue mission.
You were a chaplain.
Yep.
Became friends. Had a lot of funny stories. Before going any further, I thought about this. Remember that one time I went to see Poo with...
You went ski biking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had said when we were... I think I was there for maybe a year. And somewhere along that time, you're like, hey, dude, I was at the ski swap and I saw these sick things called ski bikes. And I was like, I don't know. Dude, I was skeptical.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, dude. I don't know about the ski bikes. Let's just go snowboarding or something. You're like, dude, these things are sick.
Yeah.
So you started showing me them. I was like, oh, dude, that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
And you're like, let's go. The only place you can go to and rent them is Sipapoo.
Yeah.
You had... Did you buy one or you rented one?
I rented one from like
one of the companies.
Like a company.
Yeah.
And then...
Yours was sick.
Yeah, mine was sick.
Yeah.
I had like the real deal.
Yeah. And
then...
ours were like bob.
ski
dude.
bobs.
Yeah.
They were like duct tape all over.
Yeah. So I was like, dude, this thing is sketchy.
And it was the only ones they had.
Yeah.
And we got there and like snaked them from those two guys.
Yeah, they're right there after us.
They're right there after us, yeah.
Dude, that was funny too because everyone on the mountain that day just hated us.
Oh,
they were so mad. Because we'd be like, left, right.
Because that's
flying.
the thing, man. It's like you're just bombing down a hill.
Yeah, there's no brakes on those. Dude.
No.
Yeah.
Now there is, but like,
is there?
Yeah, they have these little like hooks. These little hooks
dig
that dig back in the back fork. So.
Dude.
That's weak.
Yeah, you don't need that.
Brakes.
Brakes. No, I remember what we would do to slow down is just come up the hill.
Yep.
And then turn back down. We had Nate Pup with us.
Yep.
And that was when, because none of us had gone. I don't know if we had gone before that. Did you go before that?
I went a couple times before that, and I got like kind of like into it, like with that company, and then I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah. So that was the first time me and Nate went.
Yeah.
And I remember him taking that turn, but he just like dug his heels in and just went off the edge.
Off the edge.
Yeah. And we're like, we stopped and we're like, oh my gosh, dude, he just died.
There went Nate.
Yeah, he just died, dude. But that was a blast, dude. That was fun.
That was a good time.
But yeah, so rescue mission. You were there when I got my nickname that never went away.
Yeah.
French Jimmy. French version of Jimmy. James.
Jimmy.
And it stuck. And here I am. And
That's
we're on the Who's French podcast.
Who's French? That's the name of this? I don't even know the name of the podcast.
Who's French?
I like it.
I'm having friends and family on who I shared good memories with and laughs and tears and made me who I am.
Cool, man.
That's what I wanted to do. Have a good time. But you had said something before, and I didn't notice. There's not a lot of things. Okay, let me rephrase this right. I don't know a lot about you.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So before we met, you had done a lot.
Sure.
A lot of different things.
Yeah.
I met you from this point to now. So I know the story from then to now. But you had mentioned El Paso.
Yeah.
What was in El Paso?
Well, me and my wife... Well, I can start like even before that.
Yeah. Well, how about this? Where did you meet Becca?
So,
for anyone who doesn't know Ernest or his wife,
yeah,
Becca is the sweetest woman
yeah.
ever. I just wanted to throw that out there.
So
Shout out Becca.
I met Becca at actually a blind date.
No way.
So it was actually I'm a year apart. So I was out of high school. She was a senior in high school. Her date bailed on her 2 days before prom. Her sister was dating my cousin at the time. And her sister was just like calling everybody. So her sister called me up and said, hey, you want to go take my sister to prom? Her date bailed on her and just like gave me the story. And I was like, yeah, no big deal. I was like, I'll take her prom. So took Becca to prom, blind date. And we hit it off from there.
You just told gentleman ended up.
Boom. Just a bad dude, man. Just a bad dude.
That's the truth.
And we dated long distance like close long distance was 45 minutes away.
Okay.
I was in Belen. She was in Albuquerque. And from there, she moved to New Mexico State. And I was working at a church at the time. And then I wanted to get married and make some money. So I actually went to the oil field for 2.5 years. So we moved even further apart. And then she moved to El Paso. She got a job in El Paso. And the whole time we dated, we dated long distance for 4 years.
Dang, dude.
Like, yeah, and it was actually like 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And we got engaged, and yeah, we never lived closer than 45 minutes, but most of the time it was like 4 hours away.
Dang.
Like 3 to 4 hours. And we got engaged and got married like 4 months later. So like long dated for 4 years, but then like got engaged and
Yeah.
that's it.
That's sick.
Moved to El Paso, lived there for a couple months, and we were planning, she had a really good job there. Well, she got laid off like right before Christmas. We both moved back here, and in February, I started at the rescue mission, and she started at her accounting firm at the time.
So I had met you like a little after you guys had moved back then.
Yeah, so we moved back in probably like a year. I was probably there for like a year or something, like maybe a year and a half,
Okay.
2 years. Because I was a chaplain, like, whenever you came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I think maybe you just got promoted. What were
Yeah.
you doing there before that?
So I was the maintenance guy at the rescue mission. So I applied to be a chaplain. So before that, I got my ordination. Before I went to the oil field, I got ordained as a Baptist pastor. And I went and I applied for a chaplain position at the rescue mission. And I went and showed up to the interview, and he was like, "Man, I wish you were here yesterday." And at the end of the interview, he said that. And he was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, we just hired this other guy." And I was like, "Oh, well, why did we do the interview?"
Yeah.
And he was just like, "But we have. So what do you think about maintenance?" And before I was actually a pastor, I was an aircraft mechanic. I was like, I do maintenance, like building maintenance. And I was like, grew up like doing stuff like that. I was like, no big deal. Like, let's do this. And so I'm actually really thankful because I didn't know anything about homelessness or anything like that until I got like just thrown into it. And then I learned a lot of like the behind the scenes and like developing relationships and like just like it's its own culture, right? It's like its own thing, like and you don't really know until you're like a part of it.
Yeah.
And so then I applied for a chaplaincy like twice, and I actually like got it on like the second time. So they actually hired another guy before they hired me the second time. So
that's cool.
So yeah.
I'll go back a little bit. What were the oil fields like? Because I've heard mostly bad things. I've heard money's killer, but it's tough.
Yeah, so I had kind of like a weird job in the oil field. So I was a yard man. And so one of the cool, weird things about my job is long hours. Long hours, like anything. Like you don't work regular hours in the oil field. You just work. Mm-hmm. And that's why you make a lot of money. But you make a lot of money on overtime and like stuff like that. Well, I actually worked for a concrete company that contracted with other places there because I knew concrete, and then it was my brother-in-law that got me a job. So, but I still had to be there before the concrete guys were there. So that's like super early in the morning. Mm-hmm. So I lived in a camper for like 2.5 years. And the thing is it's really, it was really kind of really good going there and being a pastor, because the oil field, I think like where a lot of the stigma comes from, where everybody says like it's just kind of like horrible. Well, it's you work really hard, you make a lot of money, but there's nothing to do. Mm-hmm. So you spend a lot of money on. So a lot of people spend a lot of money on like alcohol, drugs, entertainment, and stuff like that, or just getting out of town every weekend. Mm-hmm. And it's really weird living that double life. I always say like days have feelings. Like, there's a Friday feeling, mm-hmm. and then there's like a Sunday evening feeling. Mm-hmm. And dude, I would say like one of the hardest things, like I'd go visit Becca or like that type of thing, or come home when we were back to Blend. Dude, that Sunday afternoon feeling, it was the worst, dude.
Bummed out.
And so many guys just, like, I think live that way for so long. Like, it's just, like, that's, like, the thing. So you go hard, like, Friday, Saturday, and then the rest of the time you're, like, miserable. Yeah. But I think, like, the thing that kept me, like, sane, I'd go home and read. Like, that was, like, my thing. Like, I'd go home, take shower, like the weather's brutal. Mm-hmm. Nothing over there is pretty.
Middle of nowhere.
Yeah. A lot of people describe it as like, they're like, it's like the armpit of the world. And so it smells, it's just gross.
Yeah.
But I think, like, you just have to, like, do those normal things that would, like, keep you sane, like reading. Mm-hmm. And, like, for me, that was, like, a big deal. So I read a ton of books on, like, pastoring. I read a ton of books on just read the Bible, like, a ton. And I think that's, like, really the place where, like, I honed my craft on being, like, a pastor, was just in my camper at that time. And it was, like, the thing that, like, kept me, like, sane. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
Because you go hard because you go hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, what do they say? You know, the candle that burns the brightest burns twice as fast. Yeah. And a lot of people just live that life. And so I was able to have something that slowed me down. But yeah, the oil field is something else.
Dang, dude.
Yeah.
And then having that job, working those hours to, like, mission hours, let's say.
Yeah, no, 9 to 5,
like,
dude.
This is cake, right?
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude, like, killing it. Like, and, like, so thankful. And now, being a pastor full time, I have a job where, like, all the days kind of feel the same. Mm-hmm. But all the days can bring me anything from, like, a funeral to, like, a wedding. Yeah. You know, so and everything in between, like, and, you know, and as Scripture says, you know, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like how my days go. And so I don't really say I have bad days anymore. Mm-hmm. I just have, like, moments in the day that were really joyous and, like, moments of the day that were, like, really, really sad. But I think that's, like, if we're honest with ourselves, that's the way, I think that's a full life. That's like an honest full life. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Yeah,
that's cool. That's crazy. Because I've heard stories about the oil fields, and you know, there might have been a split second there that I was like, oh.
Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah, no.
No, I'm just kidding. No. Like you can do it, but here's the other thing. I went there to get out. Mm. Like the whole time it was like stacking cash, leaving it there. Like, don't touch it. Mm-hmm. Like, lived in a camper, cheap meals, wasn't going out and eating all crazy, just chilling. Yeah. You know?
And I feel like if you don't have that discipline, your money goes fast.
Oh, dude, just like burns.
Like those guys.
Yeah, because that temptation's always there, because you're making so much a paycheck, mm-hmm. and then you're like, I can get finance for anything. Like, I just go taking my paycheck. They'll be like, oh, yeah, here's a $75,000 truck. Yeah. Or here's a $100,000 camper. Or here's how many credit cards do you need? You can go on that many vacations. Like, and then you're a slave to it forever. But no. Drove the same truck I drove in high school. Lived in a $5,000 camper.
Dude, that's cool.
And that was it.
My buddy Travis, who I had before, he left. He was in Alaska on a salmon boat. He was on the boat sometimes, and then he was, like, processing the other times. And he says it's the same way out there. He goes, mm-hmm. because it's like you work 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. Yeah. And he goes, when you get off, the people because there's nothing to do, it's a small town. Mm-hmm. He goes, people go to the bar. Yeah. And they blow their checks at the bar, but they have to get up the next day and do it again. So, like, it's just on repeat. Yeah. And he was like, I went out. Oh yeah, I went out every now and then or whatever. And he goes, but yeah, he's like, I became like, because like the guys he bunked with, he was saying that, like, pretty crazy dudes. Yeah. And he saw them, like, blowing all their money, and he was, like, saving some. Like, dude, how are you doing it? He's like, oh, I'm not going to the bars every day after work, you know? Yeah. And so he became, like, their finance guy.
Just like the one guy.
Yeah, in their room, because I think there's 4 of them. The guys would get paid and give him the cash, and he would give them allowances.
Oh, he was just the Dave Ramsey of the salmon run.
And
that's sick.
He was like, because yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude. But he was like, it was a hard job, and he worked at the DC too, and I worked at the DC.
Yeah, like, dude, that's another place. Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, I was like, I think my sleep and, like, my body's still getting used to the hours I worked there.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it. I was like, I signed up for 412s. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. That's no problem. And then I never worked 12. I think the shortest day I had was 14, and then the longest day I had was like 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And I had to go back the next day.
Yep.
So that was when Oliver was just born. I was over there because I left the job I was at to make more money, be closer to home. Because I was traveling a little bit with the last job before that. And I was like, no, I want to be closer to home. It's right there.
Yeah. 10,
15 minutes away. And so after a while, I was like, dude, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, I just felt sick. I'm like, dude, I don't see my family. And we have no time. On my days off, I'm catching up on sleep. Yeah. That's not cool. Then I found the job I have now, and it's awesome. But yeah, like those jobs make you thankful for like not a normal job, but less hours.
Oh no,
more time to spend with your family, like the little things.
Yeah, and it's so I call them quality of life raises, and as many of those as you can give yourself, like dude, that like makes all the I'm more thankful for that than like money, like you know.
So quality of life raises is like maybe getting a little bit more time outside of the office, more time with your family is what you mean.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like, and I mean that's worth its weight in gold, you know, because you think about a job, you're selling your time that you're never going to get back. You know, you're selling your time and exchanging it for money, and that's a big thing because you know you only have so much time. You know, so you gotta do it.
It's deep.
Well, that's kind of like my gig now, so I kind of like talk deep. So
yeah, I like it. But with that being said, I guess so on these podcasts, I don't plan on anything, right?
Sure.
That I talk about, because I want it to be natural.
Yeah.
For the most part, I've asked a couple of friends, is it okay if we talk about this? You know, that's pretty much it.
Cool.
And then we'll spiral from there. But I didn't plan this, but since it's a Thanksgiving special, we just said it. Thankful for the hard jobs.
Yeah.
That brought us to now, so that we can do what we do.
Yeah, and then like, I'm thankful that my wife has a real job. So.
Hey, shout out Becca.
Yeah, shout out Becca. No, but we always talk about that too.
Yeah.
But it's really cool that that we both have our things that we're really passionate about. But yeah, no, and she loves it. She loves my job for her too. She loves because she does ministry alongside me. So it's just really cool for her too.
Like you said, like there's those days where it's just, you know, humbling days, sad days, happy days, all the in between. I feel like I know the answer, but I would like you to say it. What keeps you? So do you have to snap yourself out of those sad days, or just does it linger with you? Because I'm sure there's a variety of sad things, not just funerals. I'm sure there's a variety of sad things that you witness. That there's real no clear way to say this is how you get better. So for you, in having to, presented these situations or have these conversations,
sure,
are the things that you do? Because I'm assuming like the mission and your job at the mission.
Yeah,
you saw a lot. You had to talk to a lot of people who sure those conversations. Some of them are pretty wild.
Oh yeah, no.
What do you do? Like, does it linger with you, or do you kind of like whenever you're done for the day, it's kind of like you try and just be done for the day? And if not, if it does linger with you, like what do you kind of do to let go?
Well, I think it's a lot of things that you have to do because I think everything lingers with all of us in regards to men. Like everything lingers with all of us, and I minister to a lot of people about this actual thing, and I don't care what you are. Is you have a really hard day at work, or you have a really hard thing, or you're dealing with this really big thing, and then you come home, and the biggest thing for me is I would feel superior to my family. Like you want to like hang out with me, and like I'm dealing with like this big, like I just heard like somebody, like I just talked somebody off like committing suicide. And like do that, and so
so it's like my problems are bigger than
exactly
this. Okay.
Like that, and I think that is a thing I really had to like guard myself from, that I didn't even know I was taking with me, because that's the thing is like like you're still dealing with this thing, you're still processing it, and like, you know, your kid jumps on you, or like, or like your wife, like, well, what do you want for dinner? And I was like, I don't even want to eat right now, like, you know. And then you like say it like that, and she's like, whoa, like my bad. But I think what I had to do was definitely be conscious of that fact. And it goes to another thing where I have to be accountable to go to God for God to give me perspective. And that was one of the things that Job did. Like, Job goes through like the worst parts of the Bible, like one of like the saddest stories. The only sadder story in the Bible besides Job is the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Like, just straight up. Well, the cool thing about Job is what did God give Job? He gave Job perspective. And I think one of the things that we overlook in being Christians is going to God.
Chills, bro.
Yeah, is going to God and getting perspective. And that's what, like, you know, I'm talking about a thankful thing, is whenever he went and he looked at Job and he said, can you loosen Orion's belt? And he's literally talking like, can you rearrange the stars? And then he's like, Leviathan, like, could you put a leash around his neck? It's like, just touch it, you won't forget the day. And I think to get ourselves out of those places where like you're dealing with heavy stuff, so that you can have a consistent joy. Because I think we, as Christians, we kind of like talk about like joy, like we talk about it like lightheadedly, but it's a really heavy thing. That how do we rejoice with those who rejoice, and we weep with those who weep from moment to moment, but we have consistent joy? Well, that comes from having a clear perspective of who God actually is. Because if I'm in control and it's all up to me, well, I'm on the grading system every day. Like, I'm going to have good days and bad days. And then my attitude is going to be reflected of whatever my day was. Well, that's a horrible way to live. But to consciously go and getting perspective from God, where just reminding him, like, oh, you're in charge, I'm not. Like I'm on like a planet that's spinning around like a star, and you're controlling all that. And I'm like a little dude on that planet. And I can see like throughout my life, like working jobs I hated to like stuff I loved to doing what I'm doing now. And like, oh, you prepared me for like every bit of that. And I could give this little situation to you and then get perspective that way. So I think that's the biggest thing, is understanding like, man, I don't have like the right perspective on this. And then kind of like zoom out of your life and say like, I don't need to be upset about these things. That's like a little thing. Because that's what sin does, actually. It has a way of puffing us up and making God smaller in our perspective. But we look at God and we put things in the right perspective. So that's the way I deal with it. I would love to say like, oh yeah, I did it flawlessly, but now I'm definitely more conscious of it to deal with it better. But I think that's a big part of my job, is giving people the right perspective, you know, and that's kind of what I do. Yeah.
That's, I mean, something that simple, right?
Yeah.
Most things, most day-to-day stuff, you know, is pretty simple stuff.
Oh yeah.
But that's like a light bulb moment for me.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh shoot.
Oh yeah, because
perspective is like a huge thing.
Oh,
because it's funny. I joke with Anna, but it probably wasn't 100% joking, right?
Yeah.
You know, with my jobs and her, whenever she used to work,
is,
you know, she had an office job. And I'd say, oh, it must be nice to sit at a desk all day. You know what I mean? And I'd hack on her like that, and she'd be like, that's not funny. And I'm like, I'm just joking. But there probably was a little bit of me, like, now that you say it like that, there probably was a little bit of me that was like, oh, you know, I'm doing more type stuff.
Well, that's that whole thing. And like when you say it, like, you're like, oh, I was superior.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
that's like, and like you, and like anybody who's watching this, I'm sure would agree, like, those moments are probably most of the fights you have in your relationships, when you are superior than the situation or than that person. I'm sure like band drama, it came from like a source of like, well, I'm superior because I'm doing more, or I do this or that. And then that's where this conflict comes from, versus where we look at Jesus and he is the epitome of humility. And so often we'll try to repay evil for evil. Romans 12, instead of do not overcome evil with evil, but overcome evil with good. And to overcome evil with good, that means, I got to be humble about this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got to, like, clear up my stuff and, like, okay, I got to be chill.
Yeah. Dude, it's I forgot who I was talking with it about on the podcast, but I was thinking some of the best pieces, or probably one of the better pieces of advice I got from a godfather, and it was because Anna and I were on and off for years, because I was an idiot, right? But he goes, if you do this, if you stick with it, he's like, if you're right, sometimes you're gonna have to say, you know what, I'm sorry, and you're gonna have to mean it. He's like, because pride, and not that this dude doesn't believe in God or anything like that. He's a good dude, right? But he's like, that's gonna be a major thing. Yeah. He's like, your pride. He's like, the most problems that I've had or whatever, pride. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, like it's sometimes easier said than done. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny that you say it like that, dude. Because I'm like, that's true. It's so simple. Yeah. But in the heat of the moment, you're like, nah, and then you're like, oh, yeah, no, it was exactly what it was.
Yeah. And then a simple thing I try to say all the time is, so often we think righteousness is about being right. It's not about being right. It's about doing what's right in the moment. Dang. And then I'm like, man, I just got to do what's right now. And probably the right thing to do is humble myself. Yeah. Yeah. The internal monologue in your head, like, oh, yeah. And it's like funny, like we know better. Mm-hmm. But we just, so quick to react. And being guys. Yeah. Or, I'll speak for myself, being me, I'm so quick to react. Sure. And I'm like, I probably shouldn't have said it like that. I probably shouldn't have done this, whatever it is. And I'm like, that was why. Yeah, and it's probably to like the person you love the most. Yeah. Yeah, and me too, and I get that. But the cool thing about this is whenever pride builds off pride. And when we get in those situations, like if we just keep being prideful, well, it makes like the inevitable, like me humbling myself to the people I love, like go to that place where I was like, you know what, I did screw up and I'm sorry and apologize. Mm-hmm. But it delays that. Yeah. And I will say 90% of the people that come into my office, I'm like, hey, Ernest, I want to talk to you about something. It's dealing with that very thing. And I'm talking about like these things that happened like years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was these things that happened like in a second, or like in a moment that they're carrying with them for like so long. Mm-hmm. And it just makes them cautious and me cautious of like these hurts that happen in like the moments that just like keep carrying on, that would have been so less if somebody just like, you know what, I just need to be humble now. Mm-hmm. They're saying like cool down. But a lot of people like think like what I'm talking about right now would be like, then I'd be like a simp. And I'm like, no, like you wouldn't be a simp. Like you got to go to that place like especially with the people you love. Mm-hmm. Where you're humble around them, because I even need to get I just try to feel like that with like my wife and my kids, because I have my moments where I'm not, and I need to be more like, you know what, I love them more than anything else and I do anything for them. How about I just like be nice to them? Yeah, like it's like thing. That, like the dumbest, that. Smallest, like and that's what they that's like that makes like the difference. Yeah, Dude,
that's funny. I had my friend Chelsea on, shout out Chelsea, archetype, the one who is doing my tattoos on my leg. Okay. And Oliver came in, and so like towards the end, I asked like this important question, right, with every guest, and Oliver came in towards the end, so it's like I'm getting ready to ask this big thing. Yeah. And he comes in like wanting to jump around, and I was like, son. Yeah. For a few seconds, dude, I'm like, sit still, and then we'll go inside and we'll all play, right? Yeah. And then I was like, dude. And I started to get bugged with it. I'm like, just go inside for a little bit. We'll be right in to play with you. Yeah. He's like, dude, I just want to hang out, right? Yeah. And so after, cause I listen back to him all the time, multiple times after they're recorded and released and stuff. And I was like, dude, I felt bad. I was like, dude, he just wanted to hang out, right? Yeah. And I was like, it bummed me out that I was like, I thought like this was more important than like, dude, come on. And we did. We sat down and talked about dinosaurs and all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, back to this, you know. And I'm like, oh, that's what I wanted to do. I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
I'm like a big old asshole. But
that happens.
Yeah. And so I'm like, and I was like, dang, I after I listened to it, I was like, dude. And I talked to my buddy. He's like, I'll cut it out. I'm like, don't cut it out. I was like, because, you know, that was a moment
it was
where,
real, man.
Yeah. And so I was like, I was bugged that he wasn't sitting down and listening to the conversation, but I'm like, he's a 3-year-old boy. I'm like, there's no way I would have sat down for 5 seconds when I was his age. You know?
Yeah.
And I have to like pull myself away outside looking in. Oh.
Yeah.
Why did I get bugged about that?
Yeah, perspective.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you.
Dude, it's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge thing. And that's what's funny is like, I'll do that, like, you know, outside looking in. Dude, that's perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I've been using it pretty correctly for a little bit then.
Well, that's good, man. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
But that, you know, and I think that's, and being a parent, I'll say this, like straight up, you don't want to give yourself too much credit, and you don't want to give yourself too much grief. Mm-hmm. And I think over and over again, I think, you know, looking back about like you're like, I don't want to screw up my kid, you know, but you're like, well, I don't want to give myself too much credit, and I don't want to give myself too much grief. And I think if you live in either one of those, you're messing up your kid.
Mm-hmm. Like one or the other, you mean?
One or the other.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're like, oh man, I'm like a really good parent,
mm-hmm.
and be like, oh, easy, you're gonna hurt your arm, pat yourself on the back like that, like, and then, but you stay in that humble place and be like, you know what, I'm just doing the best I can.
Mm-hmm.
But then you live in that place where you're like, oh man, I'm screwing up my kid. Everything's like, and you think back to the one time where like you kicked him out of your podcast. And you're like, oh, messed up, whatever. Yeah. And like, dude, he's all right. Like, dude, like I saw him today. Like, kid loves you.
Yeah.
Like it's all good.
And like that's the thing. It's like just doing the best you can, right?
Yeah, dude.
And that's what mom and dad said. They're like, we didn't know.
Dude,
we
you're winging it, dude.
Yeah, winging it. And so I'm like, dude, that's pretty cool.
And that's a cool thing about like once you realize like nobody knows what they're doing.
No one knows. No one knows. What's funny is I'll look like me and the brothers and everything, and I'm like, oh, they didn't know what they were doing. We turned out pretty good.
All right.
Or just stick to how we were raised, and anything besides that on either side, wing it.
Yeah.
Good. You know what I mean? The core set of values, and when life happens, just do the best you can.
For sure. And then you don't, you're not trying to steer it too much.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's somebody steering it and doing a lot better job than we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah.
We'll stay on the kids for a little bit.
Okay.
How much, if at all, have they changed you? So let me figure out how to word this. Did you have, and I'm sure you did, hard lessons in life that you're like, oh, I blew it, I messed up,
sure.
Whatever that was. Because I can look back and like, party days and
sure.
Just do all that stuff, right? From when I was younger to now, before Oliver. And be like, oh, I don't regret those days. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
What to do, what not to do, to be able to have certain conversations. Like, I think I know a little bit, right? Yeah. I don't know everything, but I know a little bit.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can help out like that.
Uh-huh.
So whenever he has questions later on in life or
sure.
wanting to know a story or something, like, oh, dude, I got plenty of stories. How I blew it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's what not to do. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what to do. I can tell you what not to do for the most part.
And I think a lot of times that's the same thing.
Yeah, it can't be the same thing.
that's the same thing.
But like for you, did you have like those moments where like, yeah, I blew it or whatever before, maybe even before Becca or whatever it was, and then you're like, now you're like, oh, this is how I've changed in my own head when the kids, were part of your life. Like, have you changed that much, or do you think you were you got ahead of it?
Well, I think a lot of times by like the grace of God, I got ahead of it in some things,
mm-hmm.
But we have to like going back to like that perspective thing. Like, let's say you have it all together, but you're full of pride. Well, you're a jerk and nobody likes you.
Mm-hmm.
I know more people that did more damage by being jerks and being full of pride than ever did by like the big sins they did. Mm-hmm. When we talk like that, and so. For me, like, I guess the things that we all screw up on, we all mess up on, I just straight up call them sin, like any sin.
Yeah.
Any sin. And that's a big thing, because I think sometimes we think sin only affects us, and we'll justify it that way.
Yeah.
But sin affects everybody.
I'm only hurting myself or whatever.
Yeah. But sin affects everybody and everything around us. And straight up, as a pastor, like, I've done those things. But I would say the things that changed that, like, I would, like, as far as, like, my kids now, is having, like, this real view where I don't want to raise my kids in a world that I wish existed. I want to raise my kids in a world that actually exists. And so with that perspective, I'm not being too critical, but still disciplining. But I'm also not being too, like, you still have to teach your kids right from wrong. But doing that in a way where, you call an ace an ace. But I think a lot of that came from me realizing, you know what, I wasn't perfect. And I think a lot of us, we live a life where we think we're good. Well, I don't want my kids to just be good. I want them to be at a place where they're like, people look at them and they're like, no, like you're awesome. Like I'm joyful because, like, you're in my life. And I think that comes from being reflective of the times in my life where I wasn't. And I want that to be in my kids' life so that they can have that for other people in their life. For their spouse one day. Or even for my daughter, for her husband one day, Yeah. So, like, back to your question, I guess, like, yeah, absolutely, like, screwed up stuff. But I don't want to, like, oversteer those things. Because I think a lot of people do that. Like, I don't want you to turn out like me, and then what happens?
Yeah, it's the exact same thing.
They turn out exactly like you either way. And, like, I'm sure, like, you even thought, like, oh, man, I don't want to turn out like my dad. Same dude. Yeah. And, or, like, you disciplined like your dad or something like that. And you're like, it just happens, man.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's fun. I watched this big old video, maybe a podcast, and, like, this guy was talking about doctor or something. And he brought up, like, mama's boys. Yeah. And what causes that in, like, your brain, right? And it was kids are way smarter than we give them credit for, right?
Oh, yeah.
They don't know... I don't know how to say this. They're not, like, book smarts, but, like, as a human being, they're smarter than we think they are. Oh, yeah. They have things just...
They're like little sponges.
Just God-given stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he was talking about, like, mama's boys are the cause of a young man, little boy, having an internal feeling that his mom is afraid. And so he goes, if you go way back to, like, old school, like, hunter-gatherer people, the moms carry the kids everywhere on their back, getting food, whatever. They were with their moms all the time. They were with their dads when they came back from hunting. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, like, that's, from what I read, right? I don't know.
I got you.
But sure, we'll go with it. Yeah. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. He goes, but they were always with their moms. So, like, they have that bond, like, connect from as far back as whatever you want to call those stories, right? And it's like, because they know when you're afraid, so the boys don't want to leave their mom's side because they feel like they have to protect her from whatever they might be afraid of. And I was like, oh shoot, dude, that's deep, right? Yeah. Like, if that is what happens, like, I can't say for sure. Sure. I'm not that smart, but I'm like, that would make sense. Yeah. That's pretty crazy. That's like, and I guess, perspective, I guess. But it's like, I'm like, dude, that's because me and Tom, mama's boys, but I'm like, dude, like, we just love our mom. Yeah. What's I never got hurt about it or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah. I don't care. Yeah. But and then I heard that, I was like, oh shoot.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with loving your mom.
No. Oh, 100% not.
But I think one of the things that happens to us, and I adopted both my kids, so I had to go through a lot of, like, training on, like, early childhood development and that type of thing. And if you look at our brains, and this was kind of, like, described to me kind of the same way by a psychologist in one of the early childhood development classes that I had to take, was we have a reptilian part of our brain, and we have a mammalian part of my brain. So, like, a reptile part of our brain and, like, mammal part of our brain. So if you look at reptiles, like, when they're born, they're in eggs, right? But like as soon as they come out of the egg, they're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Like if they're turtles, we're heading for the ocean. Snakes, man, are coming out of there. Little alligators, lizards, like boom. Mama's not there, nobody's there.
Yeah. Living.
Ride or die.
Yeah.
We doing it.
Yeah.
I'm grown.
Yeah.
Right?
I did it day one.
I did it day one. Yeah. Right? But then we look at like mammals, right? And so mammals like take care of their young. And they take care of their child. So like kid cries, you go comfort it. Mm-hmm. Like, and so they have this thing of care. But they also had, and they described it this way, they also say we have this other part of your brain that's called the God part of your brain. It's like the really in-depth part of your brain. So that if we're looking at these purely as danger, like as soon as kids don't get a lot of nurture, they're going to react like they would in nature. And just like reptiles, they're going to go to that like reptile part of their brain where they're like, boom.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm going to get before I get got.
Yeah.
And doing foster care, I met kids like that. Like, and then like being like homeless population, like, I know dudes like that. Like they were like, I'm gonna get you before you get me.
Yeah, trying to stay a step ahead.
Yeah, and like straight up like
in the wrong way.
Like, well, like in sometimes it's just mental illness. One time I was helping this guy out. He was schizophrenic, but he was also pretty psychopathic. Like, he was and he was just like he's like one of those dudes. He like watched you like a snake.
That's kind of creepy.
And like you were like talking to him like trying to like regular, and he was just like that.
He's just trying to like.
But really hypersensitive to like every lie, and so you just give him a whole bunch of truth. And like the cool thing about being a pastor and like just reading the Bible is like it's all truth. Yeah. And like that's what helped him out the most. But going back to like raising kids, like that mammalian part of your brain, like whenever you're getting nurtured, the comfort comes from the outside. But we also have this God part of our brain, like, which causes us as humans to do weird things. Like, let's say somebody was drowning. Well, there's danger over there. They're yelling. What am I going to do? I'm going to go run towards the danger. I'm going to go run towards that. Or like you did like volunteer firefighting for a little bit. Like that whole concept, like that building's burning. I'm going to run in there. Like I'm going to go like take care of that situation. And I think, as mammals, we talk about that. We need to raise our kids in a way where they make that honest transition from being, where they're not reptilian. Because there's kids that were just raised to like just cry it out too much. Mm-hmm. Well, it's just like hunger pains. Well, they don't feel pain no more. Or they were over disciplined. Yeah. And they don't feel pain no more.
Okay.
And they go to that like reptile stage. Yeah. And I talked with a couple of guys way smarter than me that they said like that's probably like where a lot of these psychoses come from. Mm-hmm. They could like track them back to that. Well, whenever you're able to comfort your kid and like be there for your kid, like that's a good thing. But you also have to raise your kids to that point where they have that God part of their brain, where they are being brave, mm-hmm. where they're doing those attributes, like where they're going and where they're doing the right thing, even though when everybody else is doing the wrong thing, mm-hmm. like in high school, right? Because that's like a whole culture where you're just trying to survive. Yeah. And like that's where all that peer pressure comes from. And you're like, well, I just want to survive. Let's just do what everybody else is doing. And so, but you want to take them to that one place where be like, you know what? I'm not going to do what everybody else is doing. Yeah. And in early childhood development, if you don't have like these, if one of these pieces are missing, it's really difficult to do, but I would say it's not impossible to do, because there's a lot of kids out there that I've been able to minister to. And, you just have to take them to that place where they know that, hey, help is going to come from the outside, mm-hmm. and then I can be brave. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's that doctor was kind of talking about in regards to like disciplining kids.
Sure.
And he was like, yeah, you can spank your kids, you can do all this stuff, right? He goes, but at the end of the day, what that kid needs more than that, he's like, hey, dude, you messed up. And that's okay, because I messed up too.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, after watching this video, like, I was like, dude, I was mind blown, right? I'm like, dude, that makes so much sense. Yeah. It's like stuff you don't really think about every day.
Sure.
But then you're like, oh, I learned a lot from that. That was really, like, eye-opening. And I feel like a lot of that stuff was true. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that makes total sense. And so, like, with that disciplining thing, it's like, with your kids acting out or whatever it is, which Oliver's a good dude, man.
Yeah.
But he has his moments. He's a 3-year-old boy.
Sure.
And, like, there's no worries of how he might turn out now. You know what I mean? He's just a little boy.
Yeah.
And, but he knows when he does wrong. He knows when he does good.
Yeah.
And I'll say, he'll do something. And I was like, good job, son. He's like, thank you, Daddy. And he's like, oh,
Yeah.
I did good, right? When he messes up, I'm like, dude, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. I was like, you know.
Yeah.
Go say sorry to Mom or whatever it is, right? Whatever the situation may be. So now I'm just trying to talk to him more.
Yeah.
And that was also advice we got from Uncle and Auntie. It was like, talk to your kids. Like, see how they're feeling. See where they're coming from. You might understand a little bit more instead of just like reacting, right? Have a conversation. It's like now whenever he's doing whatever. He's a little boy, so I'm not, how much of it is being absorbed right now? Probably a lot, but he's probably not going to remember that he messed up 20 years from now. I don't remember being 3, right?
Well,
so I'm taking it with a grain of salt. I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to put that in. Like, dude, we all mess up, and that's okay. Like, one time he did something and got sent to his room, and then I went in there like, all right, what happened?
Yeah.
He was just crying, freaking out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're good.
Yeah.
I said, I whatever it was. I've done that too.
Sure.
I did that. But you can't do that. That's not nice, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I don't remember what he did. But, and he was just like, gears turning. And he was just, he stopped crying, he was just staring at me.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay, but you can't do that. You're okay. You're not in any trouble. We're not going to keep you in the room, but that's not nice to do. And he's just sitting there, dude. And I'm like, whenever I saw that look, I'm like, he's absorbing, like, kind of a little bit of what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
And so now, like, if he does do something, we're like, you serious, dude?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And, like, the conversation part of it, I'm like, dude, like, that's huge.
Yeah.
Like, he sees, he's smart enough to start understanding now. Can't do that. This is okay to do.
Yeah. And that, like you said, those moments where you, like, see the wheels turning.
Mm.
And me and my wife, we call it the reset button.
Mm.
Like, anytime we discipline them, all we're trying to do is, like, unplug the computer and plug it back in.
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to reset you back to your factory settings. Whether it is whatever you do, to discipline your kid. And you just got to go and they're like, oh, I straight up, like, forgot, like, I was acting crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know why.
Yeah. But I was acting all crazy for whatever reason. And then they're like, oh, yeah, no, that was dumb. Like
what is it? Dang it, I forgot what story I was just about to say. But it's like you realize after how crazy it was, you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
Whoops. You know what I mean?
Whoa.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is.
It's like Anchorman, you're like, that got really out of hand.
Yeah, crazy really fast.
No.
But yeah, that's a good way of putting it too, because it's like, you see after that little reset they have, they're like,
yeah.
Why wasn't I doing that? I don't remember what we were talking about when I freaked out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's funny. Dude, little humans.
Little humans, man. They're fun, dude.
Yeah.
And then, and it's the thing is they're little mirrors, too.
Mm-hmm.
They reflect you, and then you're like, oh, man. Now I got to discipline the you out of me, or the me out of you.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
dang it. Yeah, that's all.
You're going to do that?
Well, what's funny is, like, recently it was like, I watched that video, and I'm like, dude, like I said, it's, I learned a lot of information from that stuff. And like, dude, like, they're listening more than you think. And I know that, right?
For sure.
But listening, we want to think. Watch your language.
Yeah.
Watch, the stuff, common sense, right?
Sure.
But it was like, the biggest thing is, like, watch how you talk to other adults.
Yeah.
Whether that be your wife, your parents, other friends, like, they're going to watch you talking to them the most to see, how am I supposed to talk then? Right? And I'm like, dude. It's like, and then you don't think most times, unless it's a situation like with like your job or even this, but like we're kind of thinking about what we're gonna say next,
sure,
right? Yeah. A little to a certain point.
Yeah.
But for that, like in normal conversation, just hanging out with friends stuff, you don't really think about what you're gonna say. You're just talking. You're just and that's probably when they're listening the most. And so I was like, ooh, gotta be careful with that one. Right.
Yeah, and that's so true because you just. So often we just talk.
Mm-hmm.
Scriptures tells us be quick to listen, slow to speak, quick to forgive, and like it's that whole concept where I think a lot of times we just do everything opposite of that.
Yeah.
You know?
You're like, dang, you gotta go back again. Like, I gotta do it again, dude. I messed up.
Yeah, I think, you know, just helping our, like, you know, just like anything, you know, making sure we don't make those speeding violations are going to help our kids not to make those speeding violations. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing, like you said, I think especially, you know, being kind of like leading your family is a lot of what you're going to be doing is, and what I have to do is setting a tone. Like, we're going to set a tone. Like, yeah, we're going to have the tone that I'm going to set when we're, like, playing and getting all crazy. But there's also going to be a tone I set whenever it was like, hey, we got to be kind of serious right now. Mm-hmm. Or that tone where it's, like, you know, at dinner time, like, we're joking, laughing, hanging out, doing that. And then there's a bedtime tone, right? Mm-hmm. You get that, right? Hey, not time to get all crazy.
Yeah.
You gotta like wind down.
Like that's the time that happens the most.
I know, right?
When I'm sitting down and we had dinner or whatever, I'm sitting there and he's like, I'm like, son, please, I don't want to wrestle right now. And he just goes for it. I'm like, it's bedtime. He'll be like, I'm hungry. I'm like, we're not doing that right now.
But yeah, and you gotta set that tone, because, you know, if it was up to them, it'd be just straight
chaos,
right?
Yeah.
And then, you know,
yeah,
just these things,
dude. Yeah. After, because you said I knew, but everyone else listening who doesn't know you adopted.
Yeah, I adopted my kids.
Did that change friendships? Having kids?
Yeah, it has to. It has to. It has to change your friendships. And I know there might be some people listen to me be like, no it doesn't. And like well, I don't even say I think. I know this because I went from having no kids to having a 3-year-old and an 18-month-year-old like that. Mm-hmm. Like overnight. Like, I didn't even know how to, like, do it, like, car seat right and, like, those types of things. And one of the cool things that happens when you have kids is all of a sudden they, like, you realize, like, these tiny people are depending on me for, like, everything. So if that doesn't change, like, your outside relationships, like, there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
But I would say it needs to change your outside relationships in a good way. And where maybe you don't think, like, especially like if you have friends that got married, had kids, and you're like, oh man, they're like no fun anymore. Like, don't worry, you're gonna have kids one day, and then you're gonna see like what a blessing they are, because they're like from the future. They're like, you already been down this path. Like, what do I do? And so, excuse me, but like I think a lot of the relationships like I sought out were relationships that was like, hey, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, man. But, like, you got kids, like, how do we do this? And then they were like, we didn't know what the hell we were doing either. And I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. I was going nuts.
I was going nuts, man. Just like, you know, I was copying homework right before I had to, like, hand it in. Like, it's just like, whatever, just here. And then they're like, no, everybody's doing that, man. You just chill. But whenever those relationships change, you know, it's just another season of life. And just as like seasons change, the seasons of life change. And I think when we do the most damage is when we try to hang on an old season of life instead of embracing the new season of life. And I think one of the cool things about having kids is you get thrust into that new season of life. And if it changes things, it usually when it doesn't change things for the better is when people don't fully embrace it. And I think all of us, and we need to be really good at embracing change, like going through that in transition. And I think if we would honor that embracing change in other people, like I think we would look at other people, especially when they have kids, being like, nah, man, I'm going to embrace that change too. And I'm going to still embrace them as a friend. Like, you know, they're still my friend. They just have kids now. But I can embrace the new change that they're making in their life. And whenever we're able to do that with other people, we don't look at it as losing, but we look at it as gaining. Like gaining an even better version of my friend than I had before.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be the same, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to put it. But yeah, there are moments where I'm like, oh man, I wish it was like that.
Oh, sure.
You look back and you're like, I wish it was still like that. And then I come home and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, like it's, and I kind of laugh. I'm like, probably wasn't. If I had friends that aren't in my life now, it probably wasn't for benefiting me.
Sure, and that's the thing. I think all relationships are beneficial, and definitely I think some of the best relationships like we have is like when you're riding different waves. Like, you know, there's those relationships, like even like yours and mine. Like there was times where like I was riding a whole different wave than you were, and then we connect together, and you're like, oh yeah, we're still friends, still there.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to judge somebody's life choice that, hey, they went this way, especially unless it's like something like super destructive.
Yeah.
But like, no, like, man, they got a girlfriend, like good for them. Like they got married, like good for them. Like they got kids, like good for them. I'm like over here like single, like still doing my thing, like whatever, like that's cool too.
Yeah.
But then you embrace those in each other, and you don't rag on them, because I think there's a tendency that we like to do, and like, you know, like we'll just like, we'll just be haters, right? You know, and all that is just trying to make yourself look good by making other people look bad, and being like, oh, I got more freedom. Like, hold on. But the cool thing, I think, whenever you're able to embrace that, especially in your other friends, in whatever stage of life they're in, I think that shows like how much you love your friends. That it wasn't just, I think, superficial and like, oh man, we were young and partying. Yeah. And
like the friends that probably are still friends from then. Yeah. Are probably like, oh, dude, very beneficial.
Yeah, and then, but then I think you really get like the truer definition of like ride or die. Like, man, I could be happy when good things happen for you. Yeah. Like, man.
Instead of like saying, oh, sick, good, you know, that's awesome, and then you go home and you're like,
yeah, no, right? Because that happens, right? Because guys get like that. Like, like I remember, like even you know, immature, like when we're guys and like girls tell other girls they're getting married, like pumped, like they're party. Guys tell other guys they're getting married, they're like, no, don't do it, don't do it. I just saw him another week. Like, what happened to him? Yeah, like it's like you got a disease or something, you know.
I will say, not all women, right?
But that's true. That's true. But
because then they're like, oh. But why not me? Maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, but this is the same thing that goes both ways. And like I said, there's variables and all this. But specifically for guys, because I'm a dude, so I don't know the dude part. Yeah. It's a lot like, hey, like, dang it, I'm losing my friend. Instead of like, nah, like I love that dude. Sick. Yeah. Yeah. Right on. Like, go get him. Like, dude, like, that's the goal. Yeah. Right on. Yeah. You found one worth marrying.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, like, friends that are there for all these years. Like, probably my oldest best friend. He's the one who edits my videos. I talked about him before. Yeah. Him and his wife. So we had a gap where we weren't talking. And then I missed his wedding because it was in that gap, right? And I'm like, dude, what? I remember what happened. Like, you know. Yeah. And I'm like, dude. So I hit him up. I'm like, dude, I miss you. You know, I saw you got married. Congratulations, right? That was, he was married before I was. Yeah. And then, after a handful of years, I think Anna and I were dating. And I went out there to visit him and his wife, and I stayed with them in North Carolina. And then from that trip on, it's like... Yeah, like nothing ever, like a day didn't go by that we weren't best friends, right? Yeah. So then we had Oliver, and then, let's see, maybe 2.5 years later, they had their son. So the first time we went to, I'm trying to think here. First time we went out, Anna, we hadn't had Oliver, the band was on tour, and then, I'm trying to think if we went before... with Oliver. Anyways, beside the point. Yeah. There might have been a time where we went and we just had Oliver, and they might not have had their son. Yeah, I can't remember. And then the last time we went we were there a few months ago. we surprised him for his birthday. His wife's like, "Is there any way you guys can come?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Heck yeah!" So we surprised him. And we hung out for a weekend and stuff.
Sick.
But it's funny, like you know, doing these things together, right? Like you know, we were not hanging out as much, as talking as much in this part of our lives, and then you know now we're doing this part of our lives and we're talking. Then we had Oliver, they had their son. I'm like, dude, it's like kind of like that growing, learning lesson.
Yeah.
And I mean, like for him, he's like, dude, he'll tell me his son's like maybe 7 months old now, 7, 8, or 9 months old now. But he's like, dude, he's like, yeah, we're doing that, we're struggling with this now.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, dude, those are the good days, right?
Yeah. Like, bro, you don't know how good you have it.
And so I told him, I was like, now, like, and I guess it's both things. It's something that excites you, and then might make you a little sad, right? So like hearing what they're going through now, I'm like, oh, I remember those days.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's maybe easier then.
Yeah.
Right? Because now Oliver's like, dude, like what happened today? He freaking hid in the store, and Anna was freaking out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like when they're not walking, you don't got to worry about them running away and hiding in the store from you because you have them with you. But, and so I'm like, dude, enjoy those moments because as soon as he's up and going, it's nonstop. Yeah. Right? And I'm not old. I'm still fairly young. Yeah. But I'm like, dude, this is an old person thing to say. I wish I had the energy, dude.
I know, right? Yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome. And some days I'm like, up for it. Let's go all day, right? Yeah. And then like, you know, maybe work days, I'm like, dude, just give me a few minutes, man. I gotta... Yeah. And then we can mess around a little bit. But it's funny. Friendships are funny, dude.
Yeah. But there, I mean, and I think it works both ways too. And I think being definitely like conscious of like the pain other people are feeling. Like, hey, bro, we don't even hang out no more. Mm. And I think especially like those really good friends that might be at a different stage in your life, like making time of like, bro, let's go like hang out. Like just me and you, like let's go like do something like we used to do. Yeah. And then I think those relationships can stay cultivated because especially if they're like really good friends. But I think one of the maturing things, like you said, is like we didn't talk for a while and that was okay. Mm-hmm. And that has to be okay.
Yeah. Because they're not because of problem.
Yeah, and you don't have to judge it. Yeah. You don't have to judge it. Just be like, yeah, no big deal. We just weren't talking. That's no big deal. Mm-hmm. We're just riding different waves. We got stuff going on.
That's a good way to put it. It's a smart guy. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know I am.
You're all, hey, bro.
But no, man, it's like I said. I was telling Anna, I'm like, we don't talk a lot outside of Walmart.
Yeah,
right. That's our quick like, how's Becca? How's the kids? Everyone good? Boom. Yeah. And then we're on our own ways. We for you. How long has it been since the mission?
Years, man.
Some years, right? Yeah. Probably hadn't talked because we hung out a lot then.
Sure, yeah.
I mean we worked together.
We like spent weekends,
weekend trips,
every day after work.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah,
it was like every day.
That was every day, dude. Dang. I remember Becca coming in clutch with some Costco pizza or some Arby's sandwiches. Dude.
That was awesome, man.
That was a blast, dude. And see, that's crazy that we're having this conversation, because then I might not have got it right.
Sure.
The wave you were riding was semi-different than the wave that I was riding.
Yeah.
And different than the friends and family that we were hanging out with at the time.
Yeah.
But you were still there with us.
Yeah.
And Becca was there too, right? After work, we'd go meet up somewhere and have dinner or whatever, and then she would show up after she got off, and then we'd all be together.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you're riding different waves, like, but that doesn't mean you can't.
Still be friends.
Still hang out, you know? And I guess maybe it's a little bit easier when we are working together.
Sure.
A little more convenient. But yeah, dude, that's so funny. I totally forgot about those days.
And that's one of the things I think, like, especially being, you know, a good friend towards your friend is doing those things. Mm-hmm. You know, because like you and Jimmy, like you guys were pretty much single, like, you know? And like me, straight up married.
Yeah.
Like, you know, straight up married, being a chaplain and doing that sort of stuff. And like, but still like having those moments where, I think so many people will say where we will where we won't embrace freedom and responsibility at the same time, where we'll just be like, oh no, I gotta be real responsible now, or I gotta like, oh no, I'm totally free to do whatever I want. Well, no, it's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance.
Yeah. That's funny, dude. That's good times. That's
Yeah.
funny stuff. But yeah, dude, we did hang out a lot, but then those years went by, right? Sure. And we hadn't talked in years.
Yeah.
And then and it's funny, I'll tell you the story after on a break or whatever, or we're done. But it's like funny how like those things kind of happen, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, dude, I was like, miss that dude, right? We were hanging out all the time. And then I'd see you at Walmart, and I'm like, oh, and I think about Ernest. I had to reminisce a little bit, right? And then like it became like a thing. And then as I saw you more and more, and then talking to my best friend who's doing my editing for my videos and stuff, and he's like, you gotta have like, you think about doing like a holiday special or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, that's good. And then I was like, all right, Thanksgiving's coming up. I'll do a Thanksgiving one. I'll do a Christmas one. Major holidays, right? I was like, I want to do one of those and just kind of talk about whatever the basis of that holiday is. Yeah. And then I ran into you, and like, how's the podcast? I'm like, dude, it's good. It's been a blast. Like, I love sitting and talking to people, learning something, and and I feel like everyone I've had, I've learned something, which is super cool. I even called my buddy like the day after the last one. I'm like, dude, I figured out why I love it so much. And he's like, why? I'm like, because I learned stuff. Yeah. Like different people's perspectives on life and thinking, like, it's good to get out of your own head every now and then and hear other ways to do things. And I'm like, dude, that's super cool. But and then I ran into you, and you're like, how's that? And I'm like, dude, it's good. It's a blast. And then I was like, well, you want to come on the podcast? And you're like, you want me to come on the podcast? And I was like, dude, actually, you were exactly who I wanted to come on the podcast for this next one, right?
Yep.
Which is the Thanksgiving special.
That's it.
And I knew not all about you. Like I said, I don't know everything about your life before the mission, but I know Mission On, and there's a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
And you know me, Mission On.
Yeah.
And did a lot of growing. From Mission On. So did you.
Yeah.
You're years ahead. But it's cool. It's cool to see. And I'm like, dude. And Anna asked me last night, and she's like, "Is Ernest still coming on?" I was like, I texted him. I was like, "Yeah, text back." Yeah. I was like, "We'll find out." And he texted me this morning.
Yeah.
And I got it for work. I don't know. Oh no, I woke up at 5. I didn't get out of bed till like 7.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh yeah." I forgot to tell you. I was like, "Ernest texted me this morning."
Yeah.
I was like, "He's coming on." And she's like, "Okay, cool." Yeah. And I was like, sick. I was like, because I'm not gonna do a holiday special with anyone else.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Well, because I know you have a lot. You're a very smart dude, right?
I try to be.
And I was like, dude, buddies who I have on, I'm like, I wanted to like this. I'm not to say that all my friends or none of my friends aren't thankful for certain things and not for other things, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just completely ignorant to say that everyone has their own story of life, right? So maybe I would have done another Thanksgiving special, but I'm like, I want Ernest for the Thanksgiving special because I know a little bit about you. You know a little bit about me, and I'm not saying we've come a long way because maybe I've come a long way.
Well, I think
you've just come a little way.
No, that's like the thing is I think you're always growing, and even when you think you aren't, you are. And in that growth that we see in other people, I think we often don't embrace it in ourselves, but you can see it in somebody else and be like, oh man, that guy's like, yeah. But then you take a moment just to like stop and be like, man, you know what? We have come a long way. We have come a long way.
I think with that, like, I can look back and see moments before I turn the page to a new chapter.
Sure. And
I can remember the feeling, right? And I like change. I feel like if I don't have change, I go like a little nuts. Like I have to do something new. I gotta do something. Because if I'm just working, coming home, doing the normal day-to-day stuff, I'll go nuts. That's just how I am. I like traveling. I like getting out, going camping, going to see my buddy in North Carolina, him and his wife. And his boy.
You're on the go.
I like it because it's not if I sat still, I feel like I'd get in trouble, or whatever it is. I'm not getting in trouble, but you know what I mean.
But yeah, I know.
I wouldn't grow at all. I wouldn't learn anything.
It doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right at all. I feel very uncomfortable just doing the normal day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
Very uneasy. So like this is like my weird, I don't know what it is in my brain. But like getting a tattoo, like if I am just doing like the normal day-to-day stuff, work, home,
Yeah.
but then I can squeeze in a tattoo, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, a little something little. I feel a little different now. I got a tattoo, boom, I got a story about this or whatever it is, right? I tried to talk Anna into getting our ears pierced.
Okay.
Like this little guy in here.
Oh, dang.
I forget what it's called. But it's like a little tiny little...
Little thumb ear?
You can't even see it, right? Yeah. I don't know. I forget the name of it. But one of my friends, she has hers. And I did it hurt? And she's like, no. She's like, it's a little hard to like take care of it because it's like in your ear. I'm like, yeah. I was like, I get that. I was like, but it didn't hurt? She's like, nah, no more. She's like, you have your septum pierced huge. Like, it didn't hurt any more than that. I'm like, okay. Yeah. And so I was like, for our anniversary, let's get our ears pierced. And she's like, no.
No.
And so I was like, come on. Like, I wanted that, like, let's do something new, right? Like, you don't have to keep it. Take it out if you don't like it. I was like, I'll probably keep it because I mean, she hacks on me for the septum. She's like, you always wear it up anyways. I'm like, but I know I have it in, and it makes.
It doesn't matter if you can't see it. I know.
Yeah, I know. I know it. And so like my thing is like, I want to keep it, and this is like my funny little dad thing maybe. Like I want, because I know how I look, right? Like I'm dressed pretty. This is pretty good for me these days, right?
That's pretty good.
And so I want Oliver to have friends and be like, dude, Oliver's dad's scary looking dude, right? Tattoos, his nose is pierced, but he's like the nicest guy, right? And so like I always love that about meeting people. Like the dude who pierced my nose, he's a very intense looking dude, right?
Yeah.
And if you saw him, you'd be like, oh damn, like this guy is, you know, if you didn't know any better, or judge a book by its cover type thing, right?
Yeah.
You'd be like, that's a scary guy.
No, I feel that in my line of work.
Yeah.
In my line of work.
Yeah.
Like people, I get all the time. Like, you're a pastor?
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
And I love that. Like,
feels
like,
good.
I'm like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so, like, you're a pastor? And be like, yeah.
So seeing this guy, and people know because he's a pretty famous guy in Albuquerque, and they're like, oh yeah, he's tattoos, piercings, the whole nine, right?
Yeah.
But you talk to him, and he's the nicest guy you've ever met, and you're like, oh, like this is just like whatever the reason may be, the tattoos and the piercings. I don't ask like that those questions to like. He's pretty much a stranger, right? Mm-hmm. I don't need to know the stories about your life. Yeah. Because that'd be weird if I was in his shoes and someone's like, so why all the tattoos and piercings? I'm like, who are you? You know what I mean? Yeah. And it doesn't matter. So I'm like, but I enjoy like seeing that, and then you talk to him, you're like, oh, dude, this guy's a stud, right? Yeah. Gentleman, nicest dude. And then I'm like, dude, I want that because I know what it's like to being younger and no one in the family had tattoos or piercings. Yeah. And it's maybe kind of how we were raised, right? Hey, it's not the best thing you should be doing, tattoos and piercings. People are going to look at you funny. I will say with that, times come.
Sure.
It's a little more acceptable.
Yeah.
But I see these people and I'm like, dude, like if you talk to them, and like you said, there are those jerks out there. That's everywhere. Doesn't matter if you have tattoos or piercings. That means nothing, right? It's just who you are as a person. Yeah. But then if you meet a cool person who's covered in tattoos and piercings, you're like, dude, I'm like, you're extra cool, right? Because you have this stuff. And that's just my weird thing. Like, to go back to it, I want Oliver to have friends. He'd be like, dude, Oliver's dad, dude. Like,
Oliver's dad's nuts.
He's crazy. But then I'm like, do you guys want to come over and have dinner? And they're like, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I like that. But like tattoos or the piercing, it's like little things I can do to change to keep not sane because that sounds like I have a horrible life. But like just to mix it up. Something new, something different. I'm like, cool, I'm all about it. I don't know what it is, but that's like my real little thing. Traveling too. Traveling makes me feel the same way as a tattoo. Do
you think Anna's more of the sit back chill type?
100%. Yeah. She's the responsible, money responsible, hang out, content. And I'm like, nah, baby, we got extra money. We're going to North Carolina.
Doing it.
We're doing it. Yeah. And like I said, if I was single and whatever it was, I would have a bunch of nonsense stuff that would be sitting in the garage going to waste, right? Yeah. But I have a couple nonsense stuff that's going to waste in the garage. But I would spend every extra penny I had either on tattoos or traveling.
Yeah, and you want to know something? Like, that's the way my wife is.
What?
She's the one like, let's go. But she's not like that. But she's like so
Yeah.
her hobby is horses.
Mm.
So we have. Well, I would say animals in general. So straight up, we have 5 horses.
Okay.
1 mini horse.
Seen that?
1 donkey. And 4 dogs, 3 cats, and a giant rabbit.
Seen that?
So it's crazy. So, but it's like the cool thing with the balances is like this. Like Becca would be like happy, like riding horses all day, like going, like doing like that type of stuff, like really like adventurous. And like me, like sitting down thinking, like that's my jam.
Mm.
Like I have my chair, sitting down thinking, just happy.
Mm.
And so I think like like relationships is just kind of like that type thing. I think that needs to be that balance there.
Yeah.
And I think that shows maturity in the relationship where it's like, oh yeah, you go do your thing, I'll like go do my thing.
Yeah, and it's funny like and it's probably been Oliver was young, dude, and James and all the guys had a camping trip. Maybe it was for his birthday. I can't remember. It was a few years ago, and Anna's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll just stay and hang out. You guys can go. So I'm like, all right, son. Dude, I will say this. That was the biggest adventure that Oliver and I have been on to this day.
Really?
So we were in the GB van. Okay. I was like, I'm going to take the van. I'm putting his like playpen in the back, setting up his bed. Like we're gonna be good, right? We have because I took out seats in the van. There's so much space back there.
Yeah.
So much room for activities. And so I got a GPS location. This is where we are. And I was like, sick. Put in my phone. Headed to Hemis. Dude, we turned off. I was following GPS, right? Technology can't mess up. Follow GPS. Dude, in the GB van, I was going down trails that like...
Yeah.
Dude, 2 hours into a trail, I was like, this can't be right. Like, not everyone has a 4Runner. Like James, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think he knows I'm in the van. Like, if they went down this trail, like, this is intense.
Yeah.
And like I said, it probably took me 2 hours to get down this trail. Like, rocks in the GB van, dude, with Oliver in his car seat. And I was like, I can't stop. Like, it's a single trail, like a side-by-side trail. I was like, I have to go down to find a place to turn around because it was like trees scratching the van all the way down. We
did
trail.
it. Here we go.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, son. And we did it, dude. And we finally got to a point. It's like, you've arrived at your destination, and we're at a Y. It goes from a single trail to a Y, both two single trails. And I was like, this is not right. I didn't have phone service at this point. And so I was like, all right. So turned around the van, and I was like, and for a little bit there, I was so nervous that like I got Oliver out of his chair. I mean, I stood him up on my lap. We were just cruising down these rocks, dude. Just he was starting to freak out. He's a little baby.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, dude. You know, I put him back in his car seat. He was crying. He's like wanting to be out of that thing because we were driving down this trail for 2 hours already.
Yeah.
And he had been. The drive to Hemis. He was in the chair the whole time. And I was like, dude, like I'm sorry, son. I felt so bad.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what happened. And so like getting out of this thing, like there were moments where I was just like, like to get up.
Later.
So I'm like, dude, we gotta hit it because if not, we're gonna get stuck.
Yeah.
And we finally made it out. And I got a hold of Ricky G.
Okay.
I'm like, dude, I don't know where I'm at. The GPS sent me way down here. And he's like, oh no, dude, you're way far. You're way past.
Yeah.
I was like, can someone meet me at the main road so I can see where you are? And then James ended up meeting me. He's like, where were you? I was like, dude, if I showed you where we were, I was like, you'd be very impressed that van made it out of there.
Yeah.
But we got there, and that morning I took my little single burner.
Yeah.
And he still loves hot dogs. But I was like, I'll eat hot dogs for breakfast.
Sure.
So I had I don't know if I took eggs or whatever it was. And I got my little single burner and one little pan, took him juice, took whatever else, and made us a little breakfast. Everyone else is still asleep because they stayed up later than me. And we got up that morning. He was like, where are we? And we got out and made breakfast. We went for a walk and a little hike, and we had a blast. But it's funny, like you said, like that was a moment of me, like,
let's go.
Let's do it. Let's get out. Let's do some things. And like, Anna would be content, hanging out. And it's always like me. It's like, please, come on, right?
Yeah.
Doing something like That's just. I mean, it's funny though. It's just like you said. Everyone's different. It's that balance. And James we were talking about that too. James and I he was saying that Nessa's like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And I'm like, dude, I was like, I get it. Like, you know.
Yeah, I know it. I did their marriage counseling.
Yeah. And so, like, dude, like, and it's funny. But, yeah, dude, I think it's a good balance. Because if I didn't have on, let's just say in regards to finances, I would have, like, every gun, dude.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, but even now, like, I have the money maybe for it, but I'm like, I don't know. I gotta talk myself out. I don't need it.
No, like, straight up. Like,
but it'd be sick, right?
Like, I wouldn't know how many horses Becca would have if, like, that. But that's a cool thing, too. But it works the other way. Like, dude.
Yeah.
Like, dude, how many dirt bikes and, like, stuff and side-by-sides would be full of the garage? And I look at my single buddies, and I'm like, oh, that many.
Yeah. Whenever we sold the house, I was like, hey, can I buy something? And she's like, maybe.
Maybe.
And I was like, let's get a side-by-side. Like, we're going to have the time. Why not? And she's like, I don't think so. Yeah. I'm like, come on. Let's go order one. Exactly the way we want it. Let's order it. Deck it out. And she's like, nah. And then we move in, and I'm like, oh. It would be sitting there. Yeah. We wouldn't have time, right? And then now it's getting cold. I'm like, it's not fun being that cold all the time. I mean, with your buddies, it's different. Not with your family, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like, a little different. Oh, it's cool.
Yeah.
I had side-by-side take kids out in the winter, kind of.
Yeah.
But
everyone's cold.
Well,
kind of. Thing.
It is. It's cool, but you got it. You'll definitely wait till
tone it back.
Buy a windshield right away.
Yeah. That's it. That's a big thing, dude. That windshield's a lifesaver with buddy side-by-sides.
So we bought ours in February, and I was like, let's go. We went right away. And Becca's like, we're buying a windshield.
Heck yeah, dude. It's not a thing. It's no joke. But I just, side note, we'll get back to the podcast, but this is like just a me and you conversation. This is not a podcast conversation, I guess, but we'll leave it in. I wanted to buy a Talon.
Okay.
Because this drive shaft is not belt driven.
Sure.
I'm like, I like that. And they released a new one, and I'm like, there are little things in my life that changed, like now, even currently, like to this day, that I'm like, oh, I've gotten a little better, right?
Yeah.
Little baby steps. Because I see the Talon 1000, you can deck it out, make it fast, hit any jump. And then Honda just released their like ranch version. Yeah. It's still 1000, but it seats 6. It has a little bed. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'd rather have that.
Family wagon, dude. That's what I got. So I got the Yamaha version.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, and I was like, that's way more practical.
Yeah, dude.
And I'm like, because Anna was like, would you really hit jumps with me and Oliver in the side-by-side? And I'm like, absolutely not.
So here's the thing, dude. I'll tell you this. There's single buddy went full Razor RZR Turbo Pro.
Okay.
And we were out on the trail. I was in my family wagon, a little ranch side-by-side, 6-seater though, with a bed. He gets a flat tire. Well, then everybody loads up at my side-by-side, turns into like the whole crew roll in. I take the whole crew back. We go get a tire, drive everybody back. Dude. I was like the king of the trip, dude.
Yeah.
And no, dude, it's the way to go.
Dude.
Like, dude, like straight up.
And it was like $10,000 cheaper.
I know, right?
And I was like, oh yeah, dude, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. But
and they still go fast enough to have fun in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like, and it's still like it's still
1,000.
It's still no joke.
Not turbo. I wouldn't want the turbo anyways, but still 1,000.
But it's still like no joke. Yeah. But dude, like straight up, like a buddy that has the RZR like 1000 Turbo Pro, like just me and him going.
Oh yeah, blast,
dude.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Like too much fun.
Yeah.
Like I was like, they shouldn't just sell these to people. Like after driving, I was like, yeah, they shouldn't just like give these to people.
Get a license.
Like you should like go to like a driving like course or something.
Right.
But like, and that was like the thing, and like this, like growing up like 4-wheelers or bikes, that type of thing. Like how to like you learn how to like drive crazy. Like,
slide it around.
Like getting nuts.
Yeah.
And so like that right away, like the amount of confidence you get with like that much suspension and like that much power,
way too far.
So much fun though. Like you're like
I can do anything.
Like you're like you get that excited scare feeling.
Yeah.
And you're just like dude, all day. Like that. But then you're like Oh yeah, I'd kill myself for this.
Yeah, yeah. Which is why I don't have a sport bike now.
Yeah.
Like, nah.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not old, but I'm too old for that, right? I know what I would do, and it wouldn't be good.
Sure.
But yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying. Like a buddy has a Turbo 1000 4-seater.
Yeah.
Intake, exhaust, blow-off valve, lights, and dude, that thing violently fast for what it is.
Oh
like,
yeah.
You're like, oh shoot, like you said, like.
Shouldn't have that much power.
Yeah, dude. But then the people are putting like LS swaps in them and turboing them, supercharged, whatever. And I'm like, that's nuts. Because like even like the turbo ones, if you say stock turbo, they're fast.
They're like way faster than you should be going on dirt.
Yeah. Or like whoops, they show them in whoops. You're like, you definitely need a license to hit whoops that fast. Right?
Yeah.
Or jump it.
Or like at least like, hey, like you've done this before.
Yeah.
But there's people that saw the video and they're like, you can do that.
Yeah, sending it.
And then you just see them.
So those guys in the Raptor with that jump, I'm sure you've seen the video.
Yeah.
And they hit just airbag.
Yeah.
And you're like, I probably should have done that.
Yeah.
But anyways, little squirrel moment.
Oh,
Guy talk.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's the way to go, though.
Yeah, I know. And so I was like, man.
Dude, and you'll be like the king, too.
Dude. Yeah.
You can still deck them out. Mine's decked out.
Yeah.
Wheels and tires.
Dude.
Got some underglow on it.
Bigger wheels?
Yeah.
Bigger tires?
Yeah. Well,
because that was one thing I liked about like the sportier ones is like you fit a pretty I won't say wide suspension because like you can make them wider. I don't know if you can make them wider on the more ranch style ones.
Yeah, you can.
You can?
Yeah, they sell everything for them, but the thing that is you have to understand about the ranch style ones, they're already wide as the other ones.
Yeah.
You just put bigger tires on it, dude.
Unstoppable.
Dude, and it looks cool. If you get a belt driven one like mine, since it has bigger wheels and tires, you got to change out your clutches and your springs. But
more reliable.
Well, it's so CVT doesn't do anything really great until you specifically make it for your size of tire, and then it works out perfect.
Okay. So
like mine, I had to change out all that stuff, but then.
Yeah.
But if you're going like something with a clutch, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
That's why I like that because I don't want to deal with that because I have a couple buddies who have razors. I'm like, dude, like even if it costs a little bit more, I was like, if I'm gonna do it one day, like I'd rather have this so I don't have to worry about that. Yeah. It's like, what if I forget an extra belt one day, and then we're like, does anyone have their phone, right?
Yeah,
type thing. So
it's like that type of thing. Yeah.
But no, I saw that one. I'm like, dude, like it's like little things like that now. Then I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little older. Thinking ahead a little bit. Right?
Yeah.
Because if it was me, I'd buy a 2-seater turbo. I even told Anna, like, but even after Alma was born, I was like, $12,000, we get a turbo 1000 2-seater. She's like, why? We're wasting money.
Yeah.
I'm like, but we could leave Oliver with your parents, my parents. And she's like, no. And I was like, all right. She's like, a 4-seater or whatever. And I showed her that. And she's like, that's nice. And I'm like, that's what I'm saying. It's $10,000 cheaper than the 4-seaters. It's less sporty, but I'm like, it's still 1000. You're still gonna have the fun in it,
dude. So I have a 700.
Okay.
And I thought so the Vikings have the same motor that the Raptors do. Same motor. They just build them
4-wheeler? The Raptor 4-wheeler? Huh.
And so it's the same motor in a 6-seat side by side.
Okay.
And so at first I was like, but I found a good deal on it and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
As soon as I changed the clutches out and everything and like did the clutches and like made it the way it's supposed to run, dude, keep up with any 1000. Like we go riding with my buddy that has the RZR turbo.
Yeah. And
like we're hanging out. Like it's not like, oh, we gotta wait for Ernest. It's like, no, I'm there with you.
Yeah. Dude.
And so like I'm telling you, like you're not gonna be like, this thing's slow.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, this thing shouldn't be going this fast and be able to carry like 6 people.
Yeah. And a load of gravel.
And a load of gravel. Yeah.
Dude, but I'm like, dude, that's like, for us now getting ready to build the house and stuff, I'm like,
dude,
it'd be nice to have a little bed.
Yeah.
Like, I have a little pickup and stuff. I have too many things right now. I gotta sell some stuff. But besides the point.
Yeah.
Well, dude, that's practical. We could use that and have fun in it.
Sure. Yeah, I sold a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I guess we'll end it and we'll finish our tea. Because I like hanging out with people before a little bit and after a little bit.
Okay.
So we'll close it up. And the question is, and I feel like the entire duration of this podcast in particular, you've been answering this question the entire time.
Yeah.
And I was asked people, for you personally, okay, would you rather go back in time and give your old self the life lessons you know now, or would you stick with the hard lessons in life that you've learned, that you had to learn the hard way, so that you could pass that knowledge on to your kids?
Oh, dude, write it out.
Have the hard times, pass it on.
And that's the thing is, going back to what I was talking about, like perspective. Like honestly, were they that bad?
No.
And I think that's the cool thing that you get out of that. It's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but actually, in my youth group, I actually preached this last night. The suffering that we encounter in this world is not worthy to be compared to the glory that we're going to have in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't even compare them. Charles Spurgeon, chubby guy with the beard,
Mm-hmm.
great pastor.
Mm-hmm.
He said, once we get to heaven, we will realize we did not suffer an ounce too much.
It's like looking back, you're like, oh, that was good.
Yeah.
What was that? It's like being a kid, and you're like, oh, what was I doing? Why was I doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as long as we're able to do that, we won't be too hard on ourselves and too hard on the people we love.
Yeah.
And so, absolutely, yeah. No, yeah, take it. And not even for the sake of, like, playing it safe. Because I think some people answer that question with, like, well, at least I know what I get.
Mm-hmm.
Like, going back in time, I think, is... I think it's a fantasy that only cures regret. But I think you can embrace the hard times, the good times, the bad times, and the moments, and then you don't have that regret.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to, like, embrace those things instead of being like, like, live in those things, like, you know, it's not good. But totally, yeah, no, we'll write it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what the average answer is.
Sure.
Is, you know, yeah, I'm not taking anything back. But that's who we are. That's how we have the knowledge that we have, is those times, right?
Sure.
But yeah, man, life's very interesting.
No, it's good stuff.
It's very good stuff.
It's not over.
And it's not over, dude.
It's not over.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Dude, I was talking to my other buddy, the one I was telling you about,
yeah.
who's doing really good with weight loss and
mm-hmm.
you know, all this stuff. And I said, dude, like, and I didn't realize timeline-wise, he's the one who pointed it out to me. But I said, dude, I'm looking at, like, sugars on stuff and all this stuff, like portion control, all this stuff. I said, I don't know why it changed. And he's like, well, when did you start doing that? I was like, I don't know, a few years ago. He's like, so, like, when Oliver was born? And I was all, oh, yeah.
No.
Because now, like, you heard him inside. He's like, oh, I have a soda. Like, it's sparkling flavored water, right? And but I'm like, dude, like, I look at that stuff. I'm like, every now and then we'll go out and they don't have something like that. So I'm like, all right, you have a Sprite, right? Because that's what we got when we were kids.
Sure.
You know, there's no caffeine, at least. There's just a ton of sugar. And so I'm like, all right, but I guess sugar's better than the caffeine. And so I'm like, all right, you can get a Sprite. And he's just like, he'll take a drink and his eyes are kind of sleepy. And I'm like, oh no, dude.
He's on that thunder.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And so I was like, heck yeah. But I'm like, dude, that's part of being young, right? And like, camping. I'm like, that's my biggest, like, leeway, like. Sure. I'm like, oh, you know what, son? Do you want a half a honey bun with me at 7 o'clock in the morning? Because he gets up early. Yeah. You know, fairly early. He's sleeping a little bit more now. Like, we'll get up, and it's cool. You know, the last time we went, a few weekends ago, it was, like, cold, and he was like, I'm hungry. And I'm like, me too. And I don't really crave sweets. I'm not a big sweet guy. Yeah. But it's something about being in the woods, dude. And I'm like,
oh, dude.
Dude. I said, hey, dude, you want a sure honey bun? And he was like, what's that?
Is that your go-to, Little Debbie? What's your go-to, Little Debbie?
Twinkies.
Twinkie, really?
Twinkies, yeah. I know it's a weird one because people are grossed out by Twinkies. But
that's
yeah,
cool.
I
get it. Really?
Yeah.
That's your jam right there.
Yeah. And then I'll eat like 6 and get sick and be done with for a year.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Like normal day-to-day, nah.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I don't mostly like no sweets or anything like that. Yeah. But like, yeah, if I had to pick, Okay, let's see. Twinkies. You got me thinking now because there's a lot. Star Crunch.
Dude! That's it. So, me and James would say the same thing.
Yeah.
Like Star Crunch, but like my really go-to, and I'm pumped because like my daughter loves them. Dude, Little Debbie brownies. And my wife thinks...
Cosmic brownies?
Well, so I like the ones with the nuts in them, but
Okay.
she loves like the glitter on top of it. Just, that's
pieces.
just her style, man.
Yeah.
You know, she's a little girl.
Yeah.
She loves that.
Dude.
And so, for like her birthday, like I was like, hey, what kind of cake do you want me to take to like school, or like cupcakes? And she's like, hey, Dad, could you bring Little Debbie brownies? I was like, I got you. So yeah, so Little Debbie brownies with the nuts for me, but I got kids now, so I gotta make
Cosmic
that
brownies,
sacrifice.
yeah.
Cosmic brownies.
Dude, those are bangers.
They're good,
Yeah,
huh?
they're so good. But yeah, I still like that. I'm like, here, I'm like, no, son, you can't have a Uncrustable at 10 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? Not 10 o'clock. He's in bed by then, but...
That's par for the course, man.
Like 9 o'clock at night, we're laying in bed already. He'll go, Dad, I'm hungry. I'm like, you're not having a piece of pie right now, right? Something like that. But like camping, I'm like, dude,
oh yeah,
you
camping.
You want to have a honey bun right now?
Yeah.
Warm it up, dude. It's cold outside. And he is stoked. He's like,
Plant top.
I'm like, dude, you know, and Anna's like, whatever you say. Because I'm usually more conscientious of labels and whatever. So she's like, if Dad says yeah, then you're good, dude. You don't gotta ask me.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, we did that this last trip, and it was, I didn't know they were the big ones. I thought
Oh,
they were
like
ones.
the big honey
the
buns.
jumbo ones.
Yeah,
And so
vending
like,
machine honey buns.
yes, dude.
Yeah.
And so I was like, he can't have all this for breakfast. Like, that's too much, right? So I was trying to eat more faster than him so that he had a few bites, and he was like ready for the day, which he's always ready for the day. Like I said, the energy thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, camping, I'm like,
Yeah. But you were talking about your buddy, like in just like time.
dude, I totally forgot what I was saying.
The one that was losing a bunch of weight.
Oh yeah, and like the stuff we went through and all this. You see that?
Yeah.
Little bug.
Little bug.
But no, he like he said, he went through all this stuff, and he said, I don't like most people would say like you should probably regret some things you've done. And him and I both had the same. Dang it. The same outlook. I'm like, dude, like, yeah, I've messed up.
Sure.
I've blown it consistently, right, throughout my life, and still do.
Yeah.
And still do. And that's just the realistic way of talking about it, right? If I'm trying to say I never mess up, then I'm not benefiting anyone, right?
Yeah, or you're not even trying.
Yeah, or not even trying. That's probably the most realistic viewpoint, but. I was like, dude, I don't regret anything. And him looking back, being sober, being, weight loss, all this stuff. He's like, dude, like, there are videos and pictures of us that I look back and I'm like, dude, we were idiots, right? We were idiots. I'm like, oh yeah, like they're still out there, like pictures. Yeah. You can get on my old whatever and find those pictures and videos, and be like, ooh, I blew it.
Yeah,
I blew it. But I'm like, I don't regret it. Do you regret it? He's like, no, not at all. Like, I look back, I'm like, yeah, I messed up, but look at me now. I'm like, dude, heck yeah, good for you. Look at you now, right? Lost all this weight, sober, all this stuff. I'm like, that's good for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, life's just funny, right? And everyone goes on their own paths, and...
Yeah, and you're still going on paths, and I think it's...
Yeah.
Like, I just started that. I started working out, like, I started in August, and so I'm doing this whole thing because I've tried a lot of diets, and I'm finally just kind of like embracing, like, it's weird this time. I'm finally just like embracing the process with my like weight loss. Like, not trying to rush it, not trying to speed it up, not trying to do anything like that, but just making sure, like, we talk about like lifestyle changes, like, and that's the big thing, I guess, like, if we would like overview this, is like, yeah, like those lifestyle changes we make. And I'm just making a lot of those like with my health right now. And I'm not making like all of them at once, but I'm making like big ones. Like, my big one was like, I just want to consistently like go to the gym. And like now it's like a regular part of my day. Dude, I wake up like at 4 and go to the gym. Dude. But I had to, like, I think for my myself in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not gonna make. So like I didn't make a whole bunch of big old crazy like diet life changes, but I had to make one intense one, and it was just like I'm gonna be there before anybody else, and then that was like the motivation.
Mm-hmm. I feel like after you make that move, like the small steps become even easier,
dude. And that's
right?
that's like the big thing I think that like made me like finally like in my life right now, like I'm looking at the big change, but it was just like it. Then all of a sudden, like the motivation was all these little things that just like fell into place by themselves. Like you hit the gym early, you're not worried. Like you're making a better decision about breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
You're making a better decision about what you did all day because you're like, man, I did all that work.
Yeah.
But then you're like thinking about like the next day, like, hey man, I gotta get to sleep a little earlier because I gotta wait. I'm gonna hit it,
dude,
in the morning.
Because if you don't,
my
goodness,
dude.
And that's the thing now is like sometimes I'm like, dude, I'm so tired after work, and so we're in bed usually, I don't know, 8:30.
Yeah.
9 o'clock latest. Because I got to be up early for work no matter what. But I'm like, dude, if I stay up, like, cause sometimes I'm just like, I know I should be tired, but maybe I got a second wind or whatever you want to call it. And
Yeah.
I'll stay up till 10, right? 10:30, and then I wake up at 5:30, and I'm like, my goodness, I feel like I haven't slept in the past 2 days. Right?
Yeah.
But then when I try to go to bed early, I'm like, oh, I'll wake up at 4, and be like, oh, I feel rested. But then I'm like, I can't be awake at 4. So then I'll try to go back to sleep, and then I wake up at 5:30 or 6 or whatever it is, and be like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know, like, I gotta snap out of that because,
I was the exact same way.
I was like, I shouldn't be up in that. What am I doing up so early? But I'm like, I could get quite a bit done.
Dude, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like.
But you gotta start earlier to wake up earlier, right? But you can get a lot more done.
Dude, it's like I love my days starting out now.
Mm.
Like.
So you get up at 4. You're there at 4:30-ish.
So I was training with this guy who's Elias, and he still buddies, but he just his life had some changes, so he was like, hey, I can't be there so early. So I was like, I just modify it. Like when I get up, I get up.
Mm-hmm.
But I usually wake up anywhere between like 3:30 and 4. I could be there like between like 4 and 4:30. But sometimes, I sleep in a little bit and I'm there at 5. Mm-hmm. But see, like I slept in a little bit and I'm there at 5. And you're like, whoa, that sounds weird.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm still there before most people.
Yeah.
But like if I hit it at 4, like I'm there. So on my cardio days, I'll just do 40 minutes of cardio. And then like on my training days, I'll do 20 minutes of cardio and then go like jam the weights. But a big thing that I changed was I do so much stretching now. Like stretching's like huge part of it, which I never was like. And you think about it, like anybody go in there and like jam a bunch of weight, and then you feel miserable and you don't want to go back to the gym. But if I stretch, I'm good for the next day.
Yeah.
And cool down. But like those things are like discipline. Like everyone wants to go in there and just like throw weights.
Get yoked.
Yeah, but like that stretching thing, because you look kind of dumb doing it, like straight up. Like it's not like the. It's not like the cool thing to be doing at the gym, right?
Yoga in the middle of the gym.
Yeah, especially for like a big old dude.
Yeah.
Like it's like because I look sick doing everything else. You're like, man, that guy's like a power lifter. He's been doing this his whole life.
Yeah.
Some big old dude with a beard,
Yeah.
I'm just there, just like throwing up weight. But like I go in there and like throw the yoga mat down.
Get your tights on.
And then like, doing my band exercises, and stuff like that. And you're like, what the heck is this guy? He's like, because it's like all those old man, like, exercises like you do. Dude. But I'm good to go the next day. Yeah.
Demobility is a big thing.
So huge, dude.
Yeah, so big.
And like totally missing, like I wish I knew this when like I actually played sports.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dude, I would have been like an animal.
Yeah.
Like D1, straight up.
Yeah.
But I would just go out there and just try hard.
Yeah. Just try a little harder.
Just try harder.
Yeah.
Just give it more. Just hurt yourself more.
Yeah, true, dude. But no, I'm like, dude, like, what's funny is like now we were talking about golfing at Walmart. Dude, because most times if I have a couple hours before it gets dark, we'll go play 9, right? Just quick, just to get out for a little bit, whatever. But like on days I have a little bit of time, we'll go play 18. And like the next, maybe like 2 days after that 18, I'm like, oh, oh, I feel it. You know what I mean? And then recently I got into, I've only played it 2 or 3 times now, disc golf.
Okay.
Dude, I feel like I'm on a chest press. Like this, like if I did this with my one arm for like all day long, 2 days after, I'm like,
dude, I'm never gonna play disc golf again.
Dude, I
threw my shoulder out.
No
Chucking
joke,
them,
dude.
Dude. Oh, dude, yeah, that's not my game, man.
Yeah, I was like, I
go too hard to play that game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, I had to like fight to stretch, right? And then like the next time, 2 days later, I'm like, oh, okay, I feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
But like, dude, you have like now when I was young and doing sports, like you said. Like, oh, you didn't think about it. Like, man, you did the stretches because you were told to or whatever, but like, you wouldn't do any more than that.
Dumb.
Yeah, we're wasting our time here. We're just going to get to it. But then now I'm like, oh no. Like, if I do anything like golfing or the disc golf or most anything like that, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to take 10 minutes aside and just stretch a little bit because I know what it's going to feel like.
Well, it's so much better too. And like, I hadn't played golf in a while, and then I went this past weekend with the kids, and I could tell such a difference now that I'm like, my mobility has changed. Like even like hitting the ball better. Mm-hmm. But also like, I feel fine. Versus like after playing 18, like you said, you'd be like,
toast.
Is that a heart attack or is it just like pull something?
I don't know, I stretch too much.
like what is that?
Yeah. But yeah, dude, it's funny, like just, years go by and you start noticing things. And
time marches on.
Dude. Who's that? Randy Travis.
Yeah. Is it Randy Travis?
I believe so.
Is it?
I think so. I think it's Randy Travis.
I don't know. I knew Dolly Parton said, she said, time marches on when eventually you'll start marching over your face. Dolly Parton said that last part.
Dang.
It's a pretty thug thing to say.
Yeah. She was, dude.
But
yeah, dude, we'll end it. Like I said before, whenever I decided on doing a Thanksgiving special, I kept running into you, and I'm like, dude, I feel like that thing's. And I'll tell you the story after of why I feel like this now.
Okay.
But I was like, dude, I was running into Ernest for a reason, and I'm like, dude, I gotta have him on the podcast for for something. And then this came up, like, oh, Thanksgiving special, like, dude.
No.
Outside looking in, like, if people know you, they know your story a little bit. Right. Yeah. And your story can help people with and like I'll say this for everyone watching. If you don't know Ernest and you are intrigued by anything he said tonight, with the adoption of the kids or just finances or life or whatever it is, I'll put an email contact maybe.
For sure.
For someone to contact you with any questions because I've known him for a handful of years now, and for me, looking into his life is it's really cool, and like you said, you found a balance between family and friends, and it's really cool to see because sometimes I'm like, dude, I'm tired, I don't want to do that, right? And that's just life, right? Yeah. But you have done a good job of that for as long as I've known you, and then now like running into you over and over again, I'm like, dude, I feel like you were someone who like, dude, I gotta make time, right? Like we hadn't talked in years, and I'm like, well, why? We were such good friends, and like we gotta make time, right? Yeah. And I will say this for everyone watching, like this is the first long conversation we've had.
Yeah.
In years.
Yeah.
And we talked maybe 5-10 minutes at Walmart here and there.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you gotta come on, and then now we're sitting here talking, and it's like. I mentioned a handful of times with guests on the podcast already, like, dude, it's like you have friends that doesn't skip a beat, right? Yeah, that's okay. Like you said, it's okay that happens. Yeah. But it means something for it to, like, when it comes back, be like, we're good, right?
We're good.
And so it's really cool. But like I said, if anyone's interested in exactly what he's doing with his life now, or has any questions about anything we talked about, I'll put an email in the bio for someone to contact you.
Put an email, call me, straight up, give out my number or whatever you want.
Okay.
And I'm willing to hang it and I'll just say this if I can,
say whatever you want.
A lot of people I think are turned away from pastors just because like a perception that we have that like, oh, like they got their lives together and I don't, or like, or they think they're holier than thou. And I just wanted to like say straight up, like, I'm not going to judge you because Jesus doesn't judge you. And wherever you're at, or if you just want somebody to talk to or anything, or you need help with anything in your life, good time, bad time, whatever, I will say the true church is there for you. And we, just like Jesus, we embrace sinners. That's how Jesus did it. That's how I do it. And we're here to love people. And yeah, if you guys need any help with anything, and I'm not trying to get anybody to come to my church, but if anybody out there needs love, we're there for you. You know,
needs an ear.
Needs an ear. And just need somebody to talk to. I'd rather somebody waste my time than waste their life.
Well, there it is, folks. Mr. Ernest Sanchez. Like we were talking about before this, I always learn something from most people that I have on, and dude, perspective, major thing, right?
It's huge.
It's a big thing. Granted, I was kind of doing that, but then when you said it like that, I'm like, dude, like it's very big. So, if you've taken anything from this podcast tonight, take a step back sometimes, look at your life from the outside in, and you might grow a little bit. But there it is.
Yeah, and you'll be thankful.
Once again, happy Thanksgiving, folks. Episode 8, Ernest Sanchez, Who's French Podcast. We'll see you next time.
All right. Later.
Peace.